Finally. Good evening. I'm Janice Monty, the director of this Blues and the Spirit Symposium, and I'm also the chair of Sociology and Criminology here at Dominican University. We want to extend a very warm welcome to everyone. I know there are participants who've come from the East Coast and the West Coast and points in between and navigating the NATO traffic, so we are delighted that you're here. And especially to some old friends who have attended every one of our symposia since 2008. So we're very pleased. We have a very interesting program this evening, some would say provocative, and also tomorrow. And all of our events are accentuated by 2 nights of blues by some of the best contemporary artists performing. So let us begin Blues and the Spirit with an appropriate spiritual message. The invocation will be delivered this evening by a young man who is one of Chicago's rising young blues talents, Jacob Schultz, who will also be helping out the divas tonight at Harlem Avenue. Jacob.
Good evening, everyone. Most gracious and loving God, bless us as we gather in this beautiful place, Dominican University, this evening and tomorrow for the 3rd Blues and the Spirit Symposium. Inspire us as we come together, musicians, scholars, students, and friends of the music, to celebrate and discuss the legacy of black music from blues and gospel all the way through hip-hop. Allow us to honor those who created the blues and to give respect to those who keep it vibrant and alive. Provide us with the wisdom to appreciate the struggles of all those who carry this tradition as their heritage, but who yearn for justice and dignity to practice their art and their craft. Raise our vision above all the barriers that divide us, and give us the wisdom and the courage to create a better world. Bless all of us here who have come together to share your gift of this music. Amen.
Thank you, Jacob. The Blues and the Spirit Symposium has always been a unique, and as I like to characterize it, a quirky academic conference, because from its inception, it has juxtaposed scholarly analysis with the testimony and the lived experience of those who live the blues life and who work in the blues tradition. Tomorrow, we will have a much more traditionally academic program with distinguished keynote speakers and panelists who will provide us with the history and context for the decades-long practice of appropriation of black cultural products and the exclusion of people of color, especially women of color, from the music they created and continue to perform. Tonight, however, we call upon the musicians themselves, along with a few others who have a particularly deep connection to the blues as black music, to take a hard look, and in some cases a very personal look, at the growing marginalization of black blues artists. It is our hope that this gathering will result in some meaningful dialogue beyond the expected and naive platitudes about how the blues transcends color and that the music belongs to everyone, regardless of race. The research supplied to us that we have displayed back here by the Blues Coalition gives us some compelling evidence about the limits of color blindness in the blues world. We'd invite you to check out the numbers about festival bookings, magazine covers, the coveted Blues Awards. It appears that these days, the overwhelming majority of blues musicians who are deemed by the industry powers that be as talented, innovative, popular, and profitable are the white guys and gals. In reality, the situation is far more complex, but they are clearly the ones who are getting signed, booked, and marketed. So our panelists today will address these issues and others, How is it that the very musicians who carry this music in their bloodlines are no longer considered as relevant or worthy of respect and recognition? How is it that those who have no clear understanding of the roots and legacy of this music have somehow come to define the state of the blues in 2012? One of the musicians here tonight, Deitra, Farr, has poignantly described the contemporary environment as being a stranger in my own house. So panelists, how can we explain this? Is it racism and sexism that is indeed occupying the house of the blues? So let's proceed this way. I'm going to very briefly introduce each of our panelists before he or she speaks. Now, their full bios are in the program, so you can check on that. We want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak, so I will have to cut you off if you exceed our agreed-upon time limit. Please hold any questions and comments until each person has had a chance to speak, okay? All right, we are going to begin. We have a preponderance of harmonica players here tonight. Have you noticed? And the best of the best. First of all, we are delighted to have with us my good friend and Grammy Award-winning harp player, Sugar Blue. Blue is well known for his signature riff and solo on the Rolling Stones hit Miss You, but his repertory and accomplishments go far beyond that. He is a deep thinker chronicler of the American blues heritage, and we are looking forward to hearing his insights tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Janice. I wrote this in memory of Coco Taylor, Willie Dixon, Honey Boy Edwards, Pinetop Perkins, Hubert Sumlin, and my contemporary, Michael Iron Man Burks. And I am reminded of the incredibly bountiful legacy that our forebears have left us, of the trials that they endured, and of the assault on their legacy by those that would arrogate the cultural heritage of our people. The blues stood witness in the slave quarters where we knew the lash, and in the shacks of tenant farmers who knew the backlash. Working from sun to sun, sharecropping for slave wages or no wages, in a Jim Crow system that denied the equality promised by emancipation. The comforts and securities of a decent meal and safety in their homes that their labors should have afforded them were not existent. Lynch mobs, fueled by the evils of racism, alcohol, fear, and hatred, slaughtered men, women, and young boys for a Sunday afternoon's diversion after church services. Women and children picnicked and played games under the burned and mutilated corpses hanging in the trees as they swayed gently over them in the summer breeze. The dignity, joy, and fellowship stolen from the taskmasters on a back porch or at gatherings to break bread and share the day's travails moved with the rhythm and rhymes of the blues. Music made for the people, by the people, and full of the laughter, love, loss, and pain of life's day-to-day struggle to survive. This is a part of my heritage in which I have great pride, paid for in the blood that whips, guns, knives, chains, and branding irons ripped from the bodies of my ancestors as they fought to survive the daily tyrannies in the land of the free, where some men were at liberty to murder, rape, and lay claim to all and any they desired. From this crucible, the blues was born, screaming to the heavens that I will be free, I will be me. You cannot and will not take this music, this tradition, this bequest, this cry of freedom and dignity from bloodied, unbowed heads without a struggle as fierce as the one that brought us in chains of iron beneath the putrid decks of wooden ships to toil in pain but not in vain. We've been redlined, deadlined, and headlined from Mississippi to Harlem, from Cabrini Green to Compton, Detroit, and all across this nation. These blues are not of you or for you, though some are about you. These blues are in spite of you, Mr. Charlie. These blues are mine and my children's, as they were my grandfather's and his father's. This is blues power, the literature of an unlettered people that gave birth to the sentiments that inspired the oratory and writings of Douglass, Du Bois, Wright, Parks, Washington, King, Tubman, and those who will follow. Listen, learn, and one day, if you understand what is hidden in the rhymes, it may free you enough so that the rhythm can move you to a place where we may truly share this music, this poetry, this voice that called out in this land of the free for justice, so that America can be the land of the free in more than name only. This is the legacy of the blues to America and to the world.
Thank you. Another of Chicago's fine harp players and a blues band leader, Matthew Skoller, is also an accomplished producer, working most recently with Lurie Bell on some very innovative recordings. And of course, he has been widely recognized for his role in putting together the historical project, Chicago Blues, A Living History. Matthew.
Thank you. A welcome visitor. Artists who choose to express themselves through an art form that was originated by specific ethnicity and culture must make it their business to study the history of that culture so that they can know how to navigate through that terrain without perpetuating racist traditions and without referencing hurtful language and imagery. Musicians and people involved in the blues music industry, including producers, journalists, agents, and management, must first, of course, acknowledge that blues music is intrinsically African American. This may seem like an obvious statement, but it is the central problem. The white-dominated blues industry does not want to acknowledge or support the African-American artists who gave us this gift we call the blues. Has anyone seen the t-shirt that insists there's no black, there's no white, there's just blues? I have several other examples of this kind of insensitivity. There are a couple of t-shirts here that we'll display later, one from France, one from Italy, that show a stunning lack of awareness as to the imagery that could be construed as hurtful to descendants of African slaves here in America. There's also a magazine cover we have on display that is equally disturbing. This is it right here. You can judge for yourselves. We'll show you these later. But keep in mind that these festivals and this publication that we've got here has supported African-American musicians for many years and are well-meaning. They just need more information. On the other hand, here's a quote from the editor of Blues Wax, the self-proclaimed online voice of the blues, a sister publication of Blues Review, self-proclaimed World's Blues magazine. One of the most widely read periodicals in blues music, in fact. It was written by author and editor Don Wilcock. In this exclusive interview, quote, in this exclusive interview with Blues Wax, Elvin Bishop provides an intimate view of his 1960 white man's odyssey from a home in deeply segregated Oklahoma into Chicago's South Side ghetto, where he was embraced as the rare white man allowed in a land of processed hair and ham hocks to learn the secrets of deep Chicago blues, end quote. It should be noted that it is not only his racist characterization of the South Side, a neighborhood that was and is producing bankers, lawyers, world-class artists of all kinds, and by the way, first ladies, as, quote, the land of ham hocks and processed hair, but it also makes the South Side of Chicago seem a lot more dangerous than it really was for this musician. As we know, it was far more dangerous for a black person to be caught in Bridgeport than for a white person to be caught in Bronzeville. In 2006, the Blues Foundation changed the name of the blues industry's annual award show from the W.C. Handy Awards to the Blues Music Awards. Some of us feel this was a transparent attempt to render blues racially nonspecific. Last week at this year's awards, 25 awards were given out, 17 of them were given to white musicians and 8 were given to African-American musicians. Blues legends Billy Boy Arnold and John Primer were given a very strict 5 minutes each time limit on their respective performances, while their white apprentices were given copious amounts of time on stage. There was a recent Facebook thread where a professor of ethnic studies had to defend himself for anointing Anna Popovic, a Serbian blues rock guitarist and singer, the queen of the blues guitar, at a concert that he promoted in San Mateo, California at his university. I quote Professor Rudy Ramirez, quote, "I used Anna to demonstrate how the blues came out of the African-American experience, but it belongs to the world." This phrase, "but it belongs to the world," although there's some truth in this statement, it has become a leitmotif for blues-based artists and blues music appreciators who are not comfortable with the notion that there is a difference between our relationship as non-heritage musicians or visitors and the relationship the legacy or heritage musician has to a music that is in fact their birthright. These are just a few examples of the racial insensitivity rampant in the blues milieu. Julio Finn, in his book The Bluesmen, makes a distinction between African-American blues artists and non-African-American blues artists. He posits the notion that only African-American blues artists can be referred to as blues people. All other purveyors of the art form are blues performers, including black Africans who play the music. Finn says, quote, "The blues is part of the white American's heritage, but it is different from other arts. It is the product of the special kind of inhumanity one people suffered at the hands of another. The outcome has been an art form so deeply imbued with the stamp of that experience that it is inseparable from the people from whom it springs. The blues is a cultural memorial of slavery, a musical memoir commemorating the history of blacks in the United States," end quote. While I agree with almost all of that, that in fact the context from which blues was born is essential in understanding the music, I also see the danger in reducing it to a set of social symptoms, as that too is a racist and condescending notion. The blues is far more than that. It is a form of expression, an art form, and perhaps the distinction should be that there are blues artists and blues people who are the legacy or heritage artists. When I was in my early 20s, I was talking to my esteemed colleague, Sugar Blue, and I said of another esteemed colleague, "Hey, Blue, Billy Branch told me a couple of times, you about the best white boy out there, Spank. I appreciate the compliment, man, but why does it have to be qualified? Why can't I just be one of the best cats?" Sugar Blue replied to me, as we both are conversationally fluent in French, "Do you take exception when a French person tells you you speak good French?" Wow, that really opened my eyes. This is a different language. It is a different experience, a different culture than what I was born into. This does not mean that a beautiful cultural exchange cannot take place and that something worthwhile and healing, as all good music is, cannot be the result. Billy was giving me high praise and encouragement and laying out the welcome mat as he has done for hundreds of young players all over the world. Many examples of hurtful and ignorant behaviors are perpetuated by people who are simply that, ignorant. Given some history and sensitivity training, I believe that many of these folks could become our allies and positive forces in the industry. But then there are those who are part of a tradition of white people who are under the delusion that whatever a white person does is superior, even play blues, and that they need to only say something in order for it to be true. Moneymakers who stereotype and appropriate the music to establish ownership. These are the truly dangerous ones who need to be stopped. And I'm almost done. People are touched so deeply by this music that they really believe they alone have discovered it. They become proprietary over it because they feel so close to it, and they tend to forget that it's born from a very specific culture, language, and experience. I feel compelled to enter into this dialogue because I see African American musicians being shut out of the industry their music has spawned. African Americans have given a gift to the world, a beautiful gift to me. Shouldn't we return the spirit of love in which that gift was given? The amount of racist mud on our shoes in this country, with the amount of racist mud on our shoes in this country, one would think people would be more sensitive and aware. If we are going to enter a blues community or blues industry, we become visitors in their house, and most of the time, welcome visitors. A good rule for visitors: wipe your feet before entering and don't try and take over the house.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next panelist is one of the divas who will be performing for you later tonight, is Deitra Farr. Deitra began her musical career in soul and R&B. Those are artificial categories anyway. Before she began singing the blues, she was the lead vocalist with Mississippi Heat for several years before embarking on a solo career that has taken her to over 30 countries and God knows how many U.S. cities. In addition to her considerable musical talent, Deitra has a degree in journalism and writes a regular column, Artist to Artist, in Living Blues magazine.
Thank you. Mine won't be as long as yours. The reception of the black blues musicians at home and abroad. Mark chapter 6, verse 4. Jesus said to them, quote, only in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his own house is a prophet without honor. End of quote. In this case, the prophet is the blues man or the blues woman who is without honor in their own country. It has been said that when the British Rolling Stones arrived in America, they couldn't believe that Muddy Waters wasn't a big star here. They had named their band after one of Muddy's songs, Rolling Stone. It was, for the most part, British musicians that made America know and recognize black American blues artists. Since World War II, the BBC in England had been broadcasting Led Belly, Sonny Terry, and Brownie McGee, and Josh White records. Big Bill Broonzy started performing overseas in the 1950s, followed by Lonnie Johnson, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and others. Then came Muddy Waters and Otis Spann, and so on. Then we have the American folk blues festivals that German promoter Horst Lippmann had traveling around Europe. John Lee Hooker couldn't believe how well they were received in Europe. Those 60s European audiences got to see Willie Dixon, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, Victoria Spivey, Howlin' Wolf, Coco Taylor, Little Walter, and on and on. Victoria Spivey called her tour one of the happiest months of her life. These blues people had never been treated so well in their lives. Back in America, when the Rolling Stones arrived at Chess Records building in 1964, they found their god, Muddy Waters, on a ladder, painting the ceiling. Now, my story. I began working in Europe in 1990, and the first thing I noticed was the profound appreciation and respect for me as a blues woman. In 1991, I began my special love affair with Italy because of the wonderful way I'd been treated on my tours. I started making threats early on that I was going to move there. Finally, in August 1st, 2000, I packed up my 14-year-old son and my 2 parakeets, and I moved to Rome, to his house. I found an agent, and immediately, the first thing he told me was to never tell anybody that I was living in Italy. He said the respect and the money would go down if I wasn't perceived as coming direct from Chicago. I stayed in Italy for 14 months until 9/11, and then that made me decide to return home. I thought I was home for good, but in 2007, I met a Swedish man who lived in Norway. Next thing I knew, I was married and living in Norway. Because I was there legally, the word got around fast that I was living there. I got lots of work all over Europe and the Middle East, but very little work in Norway. I stayed away from America for almost 3 years. When I returned home to watch over my father, I also return to the worsening conditions in the blues world for the heritage blues musicians, AKA black people, AKA blues people. So here we are in 2012, and I'm watching black blues artists being treated like the stepchildren of the blues and feeling like it too. It's our culture, our heritage, but it's starting not to feel like it. I'm seeing black blues artists excluded, pushed away, rejected from festivals around the country and from award nominations and winnings. And unfortunately, I'm beginning to see this trend emerging in Europe. One year, the Notodden Blues Festival in Norway only had one black musician, and he was a sideman. There was a time when overseas blues promoters only wanted to see black blues musicians. My hope and prayer is that this emerging trend in America will not become the universal norm. All musicians who love the blues should be able to play it, regardless of their skin color. But don't shut us out. I often wonder if a polka festival would even dare to exclude the Polish people. Thank you.
We're very happy to host Barry Dolins here again at Dominican, as he was our 2010 recipient of the Spirit Award in recognition of his work as the Deputy Director of the Mayor's Office of Special Events and his pivotal role in growing the Chicago Blues Festival, as well as the gospel, jazz, and other music events that distinguished Chicago culturally. Barry is now happily retired, but still very active in the Chicago blues music scene, most recently working with the Old Town School of Music on a series of blues events that will lead up to this year's Blues Festival. Barry.
Thank you, Janice. Again, I want to thank Dominican University not only for hosting this symposium, but for honoring me a couple years ago. And I'm here to basically talk about respecting and promoting the heritage musicians. Well, I think one of the problems is that the people that do that are probably ignorant in the understanding of the heritage, but that heritage is of foremost importance. That long history that we heard articulated by certainly Sugar Blue and Matthew, certainly comes from the Middle Passage and really goes through the days of slavery and Reconstruction, including Jim Crow and the oppression by a dominant culture. But the musical expression is what we find so appealing, and because that really was the music of freedom and the promise of a better life. Out of the field and into a commercial world of the 20th century America. And I think that's where a lot of this ignorance starts to play an important role in the decision-making of promoters, particularly promoters or presenters. This goes back, the music was first marketed as race records. This is when Richard Wright basically used the term race as a sense of pride, much like today La Raza is used by the Latinos as a sense of pride. And the women singers were first marketed to the African American men that had some discretionary funds to buy that music. At the same time, the record companies, the capitalists, were marketing American string music as hillbilly music. So there was a difference between, again, race music and hillbilly music. Muddy Waters first won his Grammy in the ethnic folk category, before there was a blues category. In 1976, the national government, the NEA, actually created an ethnic folk grants program. Ethnic means a common heritage, a culture, a dialect, a common ancestry, religion, or race. Folk, a sense of community passed through an oral tradition. So I think in some cases, if you come from that foundation, the understanding and and programming festivals and giving out awards would be a little bit easier for the people at large. So I think there has to be somewhat of an education process worldwide. You know, and this is a, you know, as I said, the Nations Bicentennial really brought this to American consciousness. And actually, that was a result of the reason why I actually got a job with the city, was that I was a recipient of a ethnic folk arts grant to do a series of mini blues festivals, again, presenting the blues as an important part of history. But this is a complete paradox of today's popular music with its roots in the 60s and the idea of, again, the folk revival. Well, even at that point, there was a whole idea that there was folklore versus fake lore. There's the idea of, again, folk and ethnic musicians versus the Kingston trios of the world. So it was folklore versus fake lore. So this argument is really broad-based, and it's got a long history. And how is the blues represented today? Well, again, the promoters don't look to, you know, the promoters, as promoters do, they're looking for the bottom line. And they try to market their music to the more palatable to its audience. Thus, I think that's where that understanding of their role is taking them into the wrong direction. And they need to get an awakening to all of this. And certainly something the award shows and the festival bookings are definitely not getting to the true history of the music, the actual artists that are keeping that tradition alive. And as we see, there are a number of artists that are keeping that tradition alive, fortunately, because unfortunately, in folk musics do become extinct. And this is, you know, let it be musics that come out of the hills and aren't basically promoted or presented through modernity. And the modernity is, one, keeps these artists at least wanting to perform the blues, but again, unfortunately, it's made for another community of performers that think that they are the blues for today. And there may be a place in it, but as Deitra said, but to make them the dominant culture within the blues community, to me, is really a sad state of where we are today.
We're going to skip a bit. What can I possibly say about my BFF, Miss Sharon Lewis? Just that she is indeed the real deal, as the title of her recently released Delmark CD proclaims. Sharon has been a supporter of Blues in the Spirit from the very beginning, and this year she has worked tirelessly with me and the other divas to put together this amazing show that you're going to see later tonight. She is a pithy and provocative observer of the contemporary blues music scene, and her personal story illustrates the power and transcendence of the blues. Sharon.
Hi. Here we go. Thank you, Janice. First of all, I'd like to give you guys a round of applause for coming out tonight and for being a part of this. Thank you so much. We're talking about race and gender in the blues. They keep throwing around this term, heritage music. Why not call it what it is? It's black music. Black music. But I am here as the core of this conference, a woman, a blues woman. I got it in writing right here. And I noticed, I'm sure some of you didn't, that all of the men before it, Miss Farr, got a little bit more applause than Deitra. Am I a radical? Probably. I marched with King and I'm still marching. Thank you. Thank you. I'm marching for respect as a blues woman. Last Grammy Awards, case in point, 4 women nominated, 3 white women and 1 black. And the black that they nominated, I don't think has ever touched the Chicago Blues Club like I have, especially when you go in the bathroom around 2:30 and you have to step over vomit and all that stuff. I'm telling it like it is. I'm that kind of girl. I'm the real deal. I am. I gotta do something. I'm gonna do this because I'm standing. I'm standing today not to be seen. I'm standing to be heard as a blues woman. I am here because I'm tired of having to explain my heritage to those who seek to take it. I'm tired of explaining that we as blacks are the blues men. Those who play it are just that, musicians who want to play the blues, and some of them very badly. Can I get a witness? More importantly, I am here as a seasoned professional female who wants to give you just a taste of some of the things that we have to go through with talent buyers, festival promoters, club owners who continue to overlook us as females because we don't play amplified guitars. We use the first instrument, our voices. Powerful voices. I'm here for that. I don't know what it's going to take to make some changes, to make some things that are wrong right, but we want them on alert. Let them know. Stop overlooking us. Stop trying to, make us second-class citizens in this music. Let me tell you something. When I started singing, I sang blues. I'm telling the truth. I sang blues because I couldn't sing nothing else other than gospel music. And I wanted to be seen, but I felt like I had a message in my music. And I'm sure if you've heard some of my music, there's a message in it. My song on my latest CD, Please Mr. Jailer, was written back in the 50s. But when you hear it, you think it was written yesterday, because ain't nothing changed as far as that's concerned. I'm here to reclaim my heritage for past artists and for future artists, all of Demetria Taylors, Vivian Vance Kellys that are coming up after us. The women that I chose to be Chicago's real deal blues divas are some of the most important women, I think, in this industry today that are residing right here in Chicago. These women, I met Peaches at Roses. Thank you. Come on, give it up. Thank you. I met Peaches when she was a waitress at Roses. I met Nellie on 75th Street at a little club called Buckwheats. I met Deitra somewhere out in the club one night. We started talking about this, that, and the other, and, she thought she was growner than me, but she's not, But I chose these women because we all have a different story, we have different lives, but our core is this music. We deserve to be treated as blues women. Don't take pictures, baby, with the glasses. I'm real deal. I'm the real deal, baby. But thank you. Come on, now you can take pictures. But we're here because we want to let you know what we go through. We want to let you know how sincere we are about this music. And I chose these women because I think they're the best. Can you give them a round of applause again? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Billy Branch, the founder of the original Sons of Blues, is one of the most respected blues artists performing today. His reputation for his harp playing notwithstanding, we also want to note his activism on behalf of the blues and blues musicians, and also his pioneering role as a blues educator, passing on this tradition to a new generation through his Blues in the School program. Billy.
Thank you. First of all, let's give it up for Janice Monty for putting this together. Part of the reason that we are here, or at least part of the reason that the topic that we're dealing with was chosen, concerns something. I don't want to be accused of mincing old, you know, what's the phrase, rehashing old wounds or whatever, but I think it behooves us to share this with this audience because I don't think everyone is aware of it. Now, I had it here in my iPhone and it disappeared. Does anyone have, you know what I'm talking about, does anybody have it handy? Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see, 1 second. I had it right. Oh, wait a minute, it's coming.
All adults can't operate smartphones, okay?
All right. What I wanted to say, I've been a professional blues musician for over 40 years, and in my during my learning period, I played with some of the absolute greatest musicians, including, of course, and his wife is here, the great Willie Dixon, Miss Marie Dixon is here. Yes, but there were so many that didn't reach the height of fame or the notoriety of Willie Dixon. We're talking about, there were the Sunnyland Slims and Big Walter Horton and Kansas City Red, Jimmy Walker, give me some, Sammy Lawhorn, okay, amongst the Junior Wells and the James Cotton, on and on and on. And I made it, it's kind of like a sarcastic joke, but it's almost like a reality. It's almost like when these guys die, you wonder if they're saying, I sure will be glad when I die so that I can get that benefit they're going to give for me. And it's a sad, but it's almost a reality because practically when one of our own passes, we are faced with the situation of passing the hat in order to give them, to put them to rest. This happens all the time. And many, so in the wake of that, and you see such great artistry that got unheralded, and so many of these guys died in poverty, okay. But these guys were the real deal. They were the guys that we learned from. These are the guys that shared with us, that mentored us. And then you have a quote, and I got to share it with you, and because this is part of why the topic was chosen, race and gender. Am I right, Janice? Okay, so I got to share this with you. I'm not going to say who said it. Okay, I'll do that. But this is by the #1 blues record label in the world. This is by the CEO, and it says, this is a quote, appeared in the Chicago Reader. If I'm criticized, and I assume I am, for not signing more African American artists, the answer is, show me an African American artist who has got a vision for where to carry some blues into the future, who is an efficient band leader, who has their act together business-wise enough so that I can work with them, who doesn't have a significant drug or alcohol issue, and who has live charisma, and I will take that artist real seriously. And
who was that?
I'm quoting, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let y'all carry some of this. But panel?
Excuse me, the person that dared drool that out of their face was Mr. Bruce Iglauer of Alligator Records. Okay? This man made his fortune on black artists, and he had the temerity to say something like that.
This is, so you can imagine the severity of the obstacles we're facing when the top recording company makes a statement like that. Well, do we have a chance? And over a period of time, I remember Deitra, and many of us, we talk amongst ourselves about these issues all the time. But after this, we held a meeting at Blues Heaven, Marie Dixon's place. She was nice enough to let us have our meeting there. And we resolved to write a rebuttal, which I did, and about 40 of us signed it. Some declined to sign it for various reasons, mainly because there is a fear of reprisal, because this is the climate that we work in on a daily basis. You literally, it's a throwback to Jim Crow or a throwback to slavery. You literally cannot say what you honestly feel for fear of reprisal. This is where we are right now. Consequently, and there's excellent, I advise everyone to check out the coalition murals back there, because that has a lot of statistics regarding the disproportionate, for example, awards for the W.C. Handy, formerly W.C. Handy Awards, the disproportionate number of artists, black artists versus white artists that appear at blues festivals. Now we have blues festivals that have no black artists. That's insane. That is crazy. None. I mean, zero. So this is where we are at this point. And you feel like what Deitra said to me one time. She says, you know, it's our music, but it just don't feel like it anymore. You have blues societies that purportedly are there to honor the legacy of the blues musician and further their cause in terms of facilitating economic growth. But you have societies that, and I know from people on the inside, that actively strive to limit African American participation. I know this for a fact, and I've seen it, in many instances in the so-called blues societies. These are some of the obstacles we face right now. I don't want to get too long-winded, but the main thing is it's to have worked in this field. And we do it not just because of the money, because I don't know anybody sitting up here who got rich playing no blues, okay? We do it because we feel like we are cultural custodians, if you will. We do it because this is a legacy that we recognize was vital to our culture and to America's culture, and it was rich, and we believe in it, and it's some of the best music that we ever heard. And we do this because we want to continue this. And we just want to feel, like Little Richard said, you know, we don't mind y'all playing it, just remember that it's ours, that's all.
Lincoln T. Beauchamp Jr., a.k.a. Chicago Beau, another one of our harp players tonight. Blues artist, record producer, writer, and publisher. He's made numerous blues, jazz, and other genre recordings under his name and in collaboration with other artists including Pinetop Perkins, Memphis Slim, Sunnyland Slim, Billy Cobbin, Archie Shepp, and others. His publications and writings have been referenced in numerous books published about jazz and blues. Beau currently teaches music, a course he created titled Blues as Music, Literature, and Lifestyle at Harper College in Palatine. Beau.
Thank you, Janet. Get up. How y'all doing? Praises on to all of the great matriarchs of the blues, patriarchs, ancestors, and fathers, and mothers. Listening to everybody speak, you know, I've decided to kind of rearrange what I had been thinking because I want to address one thing in this. I think it's 5 minutes, right? Okay. All right. It's 5 minutes that I have. And this little segment, for me, is about seeking solutions to these issues. What do we do as a blues family to find solutions? Now, a family is a small unit, anywhere from 2 people on up, and that family becomes a village. And that village becomes a tribe. And that tribe defends itself or asserts itself. And as it grows and moves, it develops a culture that identifies itself. And over these 400 years in the Americas, we've become an enormous tribe. And we've been, no doubt, heavily enshackled. But we've grown smart. In spite of it all, we've been able to celebrate. Jazz it, New Orleans, bury somebody and go, let them go down because we're going down the street now playing some music. They haven't beat us down. We're still strong. And I'm so happy to hear what I'm hearing here because I remember 15 years ago, and this is true, if you say it around some white folks, blues is black music, everybody would be scared they wouldn't get no gigs. 40 years ago, jazz group, you know, to use words, jazz, to label something, I'd rather not, proclaim great black music ancient to the future. And that's what I say about blues. Is it not great black music? Is it not ancient to the future? Don't we feel like we have to protect that? We can't go, look, the Chinese are not going to the polls to protect their culture, to curate it. Oh, you look at for us. They're not doing it. The Brazilians are now looking to the Japanese to protect it. They want to sell them some culture. Everybody wants to sell a product, making money, but it's really on our shoulders. We blues people have to figure out a way, if it's in the barbershops or the joints or wherever it is, in our homes with our kids, so that when we go, our children don't have to put up with this mess. It's on us. Whatever Bruce Ziegler said, I tell you, we should be at the point where he's inconsequential. It's insignificant. So he said that. What do you expect him to, I mean, what do you expect? Are we living with expectations? I'm shocked that he said that. I don't think anybody in this room is surprised, you know. It's good fodder, you know. It's good impetus for conversation. But all the things that have been said to us and about us, I mean, you know, we don't even want to go down that road with him of identifying people who have this condition or that condition, because God knows, you know, you got every 4th housewife in River Forest is probably on Xanax and $2 Chuck and everything else. $3 Chuck or whatever it is. So, you know what I mean? So do we have to even take it too seriously? You identified yourself, man. We understand who you are now. Okay? Not that some of us didn't already think it anyway, but that's cool, man. But you got anything else to add to that? That's my way of thinking about it. I mean, when I read it, I said, oh, Lord, well, you know. It's like people talk about people coming out the closet when they get drunk or expose themselves. Well, you don't need to get drunk to show who you are. All the alcohol did was just, you know, make you feel like doing it, right? So in Bruce's case, he didn't need anything, I hope. You know, what he was saying at that moment, he was, you know, boom, I'm on the case here. Let me tell you what it's really about between me and what I think of black musicians. It's sad, but we have to move on. It's on us. Now, having said that, we have to get it all together. I've got 1.5 minutes, I think. And I'm going to take that 1.5 minutes and read you a poem I wrote that I think is about the way the blues feels. All right? She's got 1 minute. I mean, a cold timer. Okay. This is called I the Blues. I am every bright moment that Sonny Boy played. I am the sparkle in every eye that ever saw him. I am those who loved him but didn't know him, and those that he loved. I am the trapped ghost of black-on-black death dilemma. I am murder needlessly. I am the blues of ex-slavery. I am the Parthian indoctrination from the seat of Christianity. I am Islam in chains and holding pins of glory. Yet I am misery transformed in Sunday's tabernacles. I am the proclaimer of apocalypse coming. I am religion forsaken to keep my children with me. I am the blues and the hope of the sanctuary. We're talking about some religion now, down home style now. I am street life, land of whoremasters and chili pimps. I am baby Beau, who cut out his own soul and served it on a platter of hot buttocks, the gawking self-aggrandizing aspirants of whorecraft. I'm 38 caliber self-inflicted death sentence for taking part in pristine demons turned inside out. I'm love for sale sold out. I'm blues of the night. I am idiolectic metaphors written by illiterate hands with master of lyrics with rhythm as my mistress. I'm Gussie Williams shouting, woo, child, you never shoot your pistol off in my backyard. Try me out and you'll see. You can have your coffee mornings, that'll be all right. I got to have hot sausages each and every night. I am Muddy Waters, Ida Cox, Bessie Smith, Howlin' Wolf, Maceo. I'm enough legends to be written upon the Great Wall. I am the unbridled intensity of black people's creativity. I am the millions of African progeny on whom the sun will never set. I am the peace of Uhuru and the curator of my culture so widely dispersed. I am the art of life. I am blues. I am negritude. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Brian Lukasavitz, is an attorney, educator, and blues musician who's joined us all the way from Minnesota. A self-styled blues attorney with a deep and abiding love and understanding of the music. His law practice focuses on supporting artists of all genres in the areas of arts and entertainment law. Brian.
I know I have a full hour to present, but I want to start out by saying thank you, and it's an honor to be in the room with Ms. Marie Dixon. I became an attorney because of Willie Dixon. My desire to pursue the law was based on the lawsuit that was against the Led Zeppelin band, and that changed my life after reading about that case. I am a musician, but that drove me to pursue entertainment law. That's all right. I'll sit down. What I'm here to talk about is copyright law, and clearly, over the years, there has been racism and sexism in what is considered a very neutral form of law. It's colorblind, it's race neutral, it's gender neutral in its design, but as we can all appreciate, the business and the application of those laws rarely takes on a truly neutral form. This presentation is considerably longer than what I have time for, so I will just cover the very basics. The largest export in the United States is intellectual property. That's the greatest export that we have as far as financial export is intellectual property, copyright law, trademark law, patent law. And the unfortunate thing is that too often specifically the blues, both men and women, have been discriminated against in the application of this. The purpose of copyright law comes out of Clause 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. The purpose of that was the word I'm looking for is to provide incentives, financial incentives, protection for creative authors. But that wonderful document, the U.S. Constitution, was also the same Constitution that did not allow women the right to own property. It did not allow minorities of any kind to own property. So clearly what was Chief Justice Thurgood Marshall once said, before we profess and respect those founding fathers for their overwhelming wisdom, let's appreciate that they disrespected the great majority of our citizens of the United States by not giving them the rights that they, in the home of the free, land of the brave, should have been entitled to, but were not. Basically, copyright law exists and is pretty straightforward as far as how it works. You need three elements. You need a fixed original expression. Those are the three elements. So an idea is not something that can be copywritten. It has to be something that is an expression, hopefully a creative expression, an original expression, and a fixed expression. And because of the way the blues has come down over the years, it's been discriminated against as a musical genre. And my rationale for seeing it this way is the first element being fixed. In the traditional sense of a creative work in musical form is that it's either written down or it's recorded. And oftentimes, arguably the greatest blues performers ever never wrote down their music and never had the opportunity to record. The idea that something be an expression, we get into discussions about what's the difference between borrowing ideas and infringing ideas. Oftentimes blues artists borrow ideas from other blues musicians. Robert Johnson was clearly inspired by people like Willie Brown, Charlie Patton, Son House, Skip James. I mean, the list goes on and on. We're all inspired as artists, and I am an artist. I can appreciate that this Polish attorney does not look like a blues musician. I get that. I can appreciate that. And no, I don't play polka. I don't enjoy polka, and I would prefer never to hear polka again. But I do love the blues. And one of the things I did, my brief story is that I went to law school. I got a nice cushy job in the court system, and after a trip to Chicago, that ended up being a trip to Memphis, which ended up being a trip to the Mississippi Delta. I returned back to the great blues state of Minnesota, quit my job, and started my own practice to become the blues attorney, which is the way I try to market myself. And my goal is to support the blues. The idea of royalty recapture is something that I'm very passionate about, and I see my time ended already. But one of the things that I'd like to note is that I do have a Facebook page, not a website, but my Facebook page will have all of my documents that I've laid out for this presentation. So I encourage you, if you can hunt down Brian Cool Hand Lukasavitz. Yes, okay. Lukasavitz Law Group is the name of my page. You can find it by searching for that or The Blues Attorney. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Brian. Wayne Baker Brooks is a guitarist who was born into the life. The youngest son of the distinguished Lonnie Brooks. His blues roots run very deep and true indeed. Still, his music continues to evolve, and his recent recordings draw on blues, rock, soul, funk, and a dose or two of hip-hop. He represents the second generation of this blues legacy. Wayne.
Thank you. First off, I want to apologize for being tardy to the audience and the panelists. I was at the other Dominican university. I circled around until I saw Sugar's camper, and then I knew I was in the right place. So I'm here to speak about who owns the blues. Black folks owns the blues. Who owns the business of blues? Others. Others. They own the booking agencies, they own the record companies, they own the PR firms. Any way to get your music to the fans, they own it. I can only speak for myself. I own everything of mine. My publishing company, thank you. Y'all can clap, I don't mind. I'm very proud because I watched how my dad went about his business. How he signed with a record company, didn't feel he was getting what he deserved, so he opened up his own publishing company, and he just went from there, you know. So all of the songs that are like in movies of his, he get a piece of that. When someone, he gets all of it rather. When someone does his song, it comes directly to him. So I watched my mom and my dad create business with his music, and I learned from that. So when I released my first album, I made sure that I wrote all the songs, that I own the publishing, and I own the record company. Now, at that point, I needed to get the message out. So of course I looked to outsource, and every time I tried, I was denied, even though my CD, Mystery, received 4 stars from All Music Guide, got, you know, some good accolades and everything, but it still didn't reach the plateau that I was looking for. Although I sold over 30,000 records of Mystery, mostly from the side of the stage, off the internet, downloads, but I still didn't reach the plateau that I was looking for. So I was continuing to look for someone to represent my CD, and they wouldn't do it. I didn't know if it was because they still looked at me as my father's roadie. That's what I would like to think, but it was that what I feel now is that they didn't want to see another brother advance in this music while they were trying to lift others. Another reason why I read in the Reader, I think Lori Bell was on the cover, that 70% of all the blues records that were released were by white folks. 70%. 70. That don't touch y'all, huh? 70%. 10 to 15 years prior, it was the other way around. But just that quick, it changed. And everything as far as the business changed. So I am here today to represent the 1% that actually own everything. And I'm very proud of it. Although you got to work hard, you got to work smart, you got to, you know, move and, you know, duck and dive and everything. But, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like I own myself. And in order for someone to try to make a deal with me, they got to come correct. They have to come correct because I'm comfortable. with putting in the work, the extra work. You know, I work as a full service label. I do my own PR. I do my own radio. Matter of fact, you know, I submitted my last single to 1,700 radio stations, and we worked them all. So, I mean, we have to own our own businesses. We have to own our own record companies. I own my own booking agency. I book myself, so I keep that 15%. That 15% goes to gas these days. And hotels went up. So when a promoter finally want to book me, you know, well, you got to pay for your own hotels. You know, I cringe at it, but I save the 15% to put towards that. So it's give and take. So I encourage all the black performers, female, male, whatever, to own your own business. Do it yourself. It's the do-it-yourself era. Technology has made the way, and I support it. And thank you for allowing me to be here.
Hey, David Whiteis does not sing or play.
Thank God.
But he knows more about the blues than many who do. Honored by the Blues Foundation for his writing, David has written scores of articles and reviews on this genre. He is the author of a book that is indispensable for anyone attempting to make sense of this music, Chicago Blues, Portraits and Stories, published in 2006. He is an adjunct professor here at Dominican, and he is currently writing his next book on the soul blues scene.
Thank you. I was asked to say a few words about contemporary Southern soul blues, and I will do that, but in the spirit of musical improvisation. I'd like to kind of go along and riff along with some of the riffs I've heard because I've been inspired by a few things. It was mentioned very early on, I believe Sugar mentioned, who mentioned the Handy Awards and how the name was changed? Billy. Okay, the W.C. Handy Awards in Memphis has just changed to the Blues Awards. And I was speaking to Bobby Rush, not the congressman, but the blues singer Bobby Rush, who's in my next book. And we talked about the Handy Awards. And Bobby simply looked at me and said, you know, I understand that people may not remember who W.C. Handy was, and that's a problem in itself. But you know, if those are the Elvis Presley words, they would never change the word. Okay? And Bobby also, because I asked him, I said, Bobby, what do you think about this whole thing about music has no color? He said, no, music has no color, but the people who make money from it and the people who promote it and the people who write about it do. And the people who play it do. And he talked about how, you know, I know that some white guy can come up and do what I do, which isn't true. No one can do what Bobby Rush does. But in theory, I can do something, or my band can do something, some white guy can come up and do something and the same thing and make 50 times what I make. Okay? He said, I know. And by the way, Bobby's not a bitter man. He's not a racially angry man. His very dear friend, Paul Brown, was his keyboard player, was his producer, and he's a white guy, you know. Bobby has respect for the white artists whom he believes have given something back to the music. He loves what Bonnie Raitt has done with the Blues Foundation. But he said, look, I see a white guy singing basically in black dialect. You know, an old black man singing, you know, these or that, because that's the way he talks. You're seeing some young college-educated white guy singing, I got these blues, trying to sound like what he isn't. He said, that's one of the worst things that ever happened to me. because he's taken all the heart and soul out of it by trying to be something he's not. Okay? And thinking about these issues, maybe because I'm a writer, I tend to be rather depressive. But I see a larger malaise than the record company problem, even the promotion problem. I see an audience problem. And it's not just that the white audience, at least in the North, is the main blues audience. And every artist knows I'm telling the truth. And I think a lot of artists don't even like to think about this stuff because it hurts too much. But the attitudes among the audiences in the white clubs, I've heard the N-word thrown around. Okay? I have heard people make condescending, patronizing remarks to older blues artists who they thought looked kind of funny or talked kind of funny or acted kind of funny because they were down-home old guys, but they still boogie to their music. Okay? Several people I've spoken with have said, I know for a fact that half the folks who applaud for me in the clubs wouldn't want to sit down and have dinner with me afterwards. Okay? So I think it goes beyond the industry. It goes beyond the record companies. In a way, the festivals and the companies are simply marketing. I was in Memphis a few years ago, and Miss Millie Jackson, she's an R&B singer, but by today's definition, she's considered blues because she sings from the heart and she sings good soulful music. She made a statement, and she looked at me kind of funny as if she thought I might not really take it right, but I loved it, and I told her that. Because she was talking about some of the attitudes among some, not all, some white blues lovers. And to me, she was talking about the white blues purists. All right? Now, all of us revere the history. All of us love Robert Johnson, love Muddy Waters, love traditional blues, right? That's where it all comes from. But there are some folks who want to keep the music in the past because they want to keep the people in the past. Because they like where those people were in the past. And what Millie said was, black people don't like the blues often because it reminds them of a time they don't want to remember. But it's also a time that white people like to remember. Oh yeah, I remember the blues. Yeah, let's play the blues. Ooh, I remember how many slaves I had. Yeah, this is good. Remind me of this. They had the blues. No, I got the blues. They're all gone. All right? Now, Millie tells it like it is. Millie talks some stuff. And she wasn't talking about the people here. I don't believe. I don't think she was talking about me. But what she was saying was, what I'm trying to say, that we need to find a way not just to educate the industry and for artists to own their own work and their own music. We somehow need to educate the people. One more little comment. Someone talked about, Brazilians don't go to some other country and say, take our music. Every time someone comes to me and questions me about black music, I say, blues is black music. Well, are you a reverse racist? Is this liberal guilt? I say, look, right now, klezmer music, right, the traditional music of the Jewish working class people of Eastern Europe is internationally beloved, as it should be. It's soulful, beautiful music, and anyone can play it who loves it. But what would happen in 10 or 15 years if the klezmer scene was taken over by a bunch of little red-haired Irish boys named Duffy who posed in front of, delicatessens, wearing newsboy caps, calling themselves Little Moisha and the Lower East Side Bagel Kings? Do you think that most Jewish people would say, hey, wait a minute, what's being appropriated here? Well, that's what Bobby Rush was saying when he hears those white boys saying, I got them blues, right? That's what even I think when I see all these guys with their fedoras and sunglasses playing Blues Brothers, right? I keep on thinking of Little Moisha and the Lower East Side Bagel Kings. That would not be tolerated, would not be accepted. So why is it only? Only, okay, we know that klezmer music is Jewish music. We know that opera is European, mostly white music, okay? Or Italians, white folks, I guess. European music, okay? Right? Stop it. We know what Irish folk music is, right? Salsa is Puerto Rican. Why is it that every musician in the world can claim his or her heritage proudly, regardless of who plays it, right? Except for African Americans. Why is it racist to say the blues is black music, but not that salsa is Puerto Rican music or something else? That's my comment. And I'm sorry I didn't do this whole blues thing, but I just had a few thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to, not to cut this discussion off because it's too important, and what I do want to suggest to all of you is that we are going to be talking in the coming weeks about a way to continue this discussion and this dialogue. We have a Dominican University Blues in the Spirit page, which we can set up as a monitored, administered page. We would like to get, all of your contact information and begin seriously talking about this and enlarging the base for this discussion. So first of all, let me thank you all for this very, very important discussion that we began today that is surely, I think, going to lead to many others. But now it is time for the Spirit Award presentation. And it is my pleasure to present the president of Dominican University, Donna M. Carroll, under whose stewardship this symposium has been made possible. Now, I want to personally thank Donna for supporting this rather out-of-the-box academic effort to accord blues the attention and legitimacy that it deserves. I also want to thank her and the administration, my dean in particular, for recognizing the connection between these kinds of academic endeavors and the university's mission and commitment to creating a more just and humane world. Ladies and gentlemen, President Donna M. Carroll.
Now, since you all know Janice Monte, you know who the teacher is and who the student is. And in this case, I am the willing student. But it is my delight to be here with you tonight and have the personal opportunity to announce the 212 Spirit Award recipient. Marie Booker Dixon has been a stalwart champion not only of her late husband Willie Dixon's legacy, but for the entire blues genre as well. If James Brown is considered the godfather of soul, surely Marie Dixon can claim the title of godmother of the blues. Since Willie Dixon's passing in 1992, Marie has carried forward and enhanced the work of the Blues Heaven Foundation that he established in 1982. From the beginning, the mission of the foundation has included education and advocacy, as well as the celebration of the blues. Willie Dixon was aware, through his hard-earned life experience, of the need for musicians to understand the legal and financial aspects of the music business, a business, as we've heard tonight, which has not always been kind to blues musicians. Marie Dixon has made it her mission to protect and celebrate the rich cultural legacy that the blues represents. She purchased the historic Chess Records building at 2120 South Michigan Avenue and oversaw its rehabilitation as a headquarters for the Blues Heaven Foundation. Through her tireless efforts, the building was designated as a protected Chicago landmark and a living testament to the echoes of the blues greats who recorded there during its heyday in the 1950s and 60s. Marie has overseen the Foundation's essential activities, including fundraising for scholarships and educating musicians about publishing, copyright, royalties, and other business practices. She has spoken up with strength and conviction for the blues as a vital musical tribute to the African American heritage and provided unwavering voice for its preservation and advancement. Marie Dixon is a beloved, respected, maternal figure in the Chicago blues scene who continues to serve as a bridge between the legacy and the future of the blues. It is our great honor to present to you, Marie Dixon, the 2012 Spirit Award.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to thank Donna for that beautiful introduction. I also want to thank Janet, which she has always invited me to Dominican Spirit and Blues program each year. I was here last year and the year before. And to see all the beautiful people that I've worked with and known for many years, starting with Sugar Blue, Deitra Farr, Barry Dolin with the Chicago Blues Band, Wayne Brooks, Billy Branch, and just to name a few, there's David White down there. So I'm here to say thank everyone for coming out tonight and voicing your opinion about the blues. Blues are the facts of life, and I'm here to tell you. At the age of 14 years old, my daddy introduced me to the blues with the originator, Sonny Boy Williams' son. And at the age of 16, I'd taken flight to Chicago. And I stayed here until 1983, moving to the West Coast. My late husband passed away January 29th, 1992. And some of his last words, and I do say his last words, were, would I continue to carry on Blues Heaven Foundation? I said I would, not knowing what I could do, not knowing if I could do anything. But I'd taken a flight into Chicago in February of '93 just to start looking for a home for Blues Heaven. Blues Heaven Foundation was being ran out of my garage out in LA County. So while I was here in Chicago, down on Michigan Avenue in the hotel, one of my daughters called and said, Phil Chess called, which was the previous owner of the 2120 building, and said, he needs to speak to you. And I said, for what? Not out of anger, but out of disappointment. Some things I was very disappointed with the Chess family at that point. And I said, well, right now don't tell him where I'm at. You know, I'm just here looking. It was cold. Being out in the sun out there in LA, my God, I forgot what happened in Chicago for over 30 years, but I managed to get through it. And getting through that, she called me back and she said, Mama, Phil called again. I said, give Phil my phone number. And she did. And Phil called me and he said, I hear you're in Chicago trying to find a home for Willis Foundation. He said, Marie, I want to apologize because that's who should have had the building when I gave it up. He said, why don't you go and get the building and put the foundation in it? And I said, but someone else owned the building. You don't own it anymore. He said, yes, I know, but the building's in trouble. He said, let me give you the previous owner, the owner at this time, phone number. Give him a call, so I think you can get the building. Well, to my surprise, I called the owner, and to open the doors to go in there, you almost had to be out of your mind to walk into what I walked into and what I found in there. Ice, water, the building was a wreck. I couldn't even see how they had named it a landmark, because it was a very little building inside. And so I said, well, I promised Willie, and I'm a woman, never go back on my word. That's the kind of woman I am, and believe me, you're looking at that woman. I do not go back. I said, and he's gone, I have to find a home for the foundation. And I said to the owner, I said, you know what, I don't know what I can do with this here, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to make a stab at it. And he didn't know what to say. I said, what are you asking for this here? I mean, this is a very little building. I mean, this building is falling apart. All the pipes was busted in there, had busted over the years, and it had froze up in the building when I went there. And he said, well, I can't get very much. The building's in trouble. Same as Phil told me it was in trouble. But I won't explain what kind of trouble. It was in trouble. So I said, okay, meet me at my hotel tomorrow and we'll talk. And I went home and went to the hotel and I prayed. I said, well, what have you put me into? What did you ask me to do? And then you died and left me here to try and fix this problem, you know. And I knew Willie wanted the chess building because that was a rich history. And starting with him, and as I heard so many of you all mention Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, Sonny Boy Williams, just to name a few. But that was a very significant man there also, and I want to say his wife his widow has been very generous to me, Malcolm Chisholm's widow, and she just recovering from an illness, but she said, I'll see Betty and the Howlin' Wolf family on the 7th of June. There would be a big celebration bringing back Howlin' Wolf name to 2120 South Michigan Avenue, and I want to see each and every one of you there to give honor to which would be his 102-year birthday. Thank you, thank you. Howlin' Wolf is one of the few that brought the British peoples over as well with his music. Willie Dixon put the pencil to what Howlin' Wolf recorded. Backdoor Man, Little Red Rooster, Wang Dang Doodle, just to name a few. But I don't need to name them to you guys. I know everyone has heard them now at this late date. They've been out there for 40 years. So, but right now, I just want to say, and I don't know how much time I have, Janet, but you know I can go on and on and on. I want to invite each and every one of you to Blues Heaven during the day. That's my grandson to my late daughter. Stand up, little Keith. After school, he beats it down to the foundation from where you living at? Palatine? But it's in Palatine? He leaves college and beats it down there to do tours. And I understand he does a great job in doing that. Because I'm trying to bring them up. I'm not going to try to bring them up. Until my death, they will be brought up in the blues. They won't have anything else but the blues. My mother kept me in the church for 14 years, and I came to Chicago, and I tried to stay in the church a little longer, but it wasn't me. And when I found my husband, I don't have anything against church, please believe me, I pray every day. But church is a different story. Has nothing to do with praying. I met my late husband looking for her father, the Howlin' Wolf. I didn't care about dating musicians. I loved the blues, and that's what I was looking for. Howlin' Wolf was supposed to be at 708 East 47th Street at that club. And when I got there, some friends and myself got there was no Howlin' Wolf. So I saw Willie Dixon, never heard of him. Ollie Crawford, and a young man called Eugene. And I said, what the hell have I walked into? I can't believe this. I mean, Harlem Wolf's supposed to be here tonight. And it was three of us, a couple and myself. And I said, you know what? Okay. I said, you know what? I got to go sit somewhere else. I'm going to say this, Janet, I'm going to get out. Willie said, oh, I said, well, you guys sing on? And Willie said, oh, yes, all three of us. And I said, who in the hell is that big man? What is he talking about? But anyway, that's how I met Willie Dixon, looking for the late Howlin' Wolf. I loved his music. And not for the music now, don't make no mistake. It was only for Backdoor Man. Howling for my baby. It wasn't about, I was looking for love. I want to thank all of you. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
Give it up for Marie Dixon, y'all. She inspires us all.